Welcome to the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may have missed, with your hosts AJ Kuti and Jason Gordon. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We are the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may not have prepared you for, and they probably didn't. As always, I am AJ, and sitting across from me today, Jason. Jason, how are you doing?
Crushing it, AJ. It was a good morning.
We're getting one of those weeks. Okay.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, it's still hot, but the weather hasn't been bad, you know. I don't know. It's just been good. Sunny day, good disposition. Yeah, I don't know.
Kids back in school yet?
Yeah, they're back in school, and that's rolling smoothly. You know, it's less about the actual school than it is about the coordinating after school and pickup and all that kind of jazz. But yeah, it's rolling pretty well.
I will say, that is the bane of my existence when it comes to my kids in school, is the drop-off pickup. Because we do car riders, so we pick up our kids after school, and the system that they use is a nightmare.
Oh, man.
And I just want to I can't stand it. I loathe that time of the day. I love going to pick up my girls. I love being with my girls. My son's old enough to drive, so he can do his own thing. But I love being with them. I can't stand picking them up from school.
Right.
I just hate that process.
You know, it's backed up, right? It's congestion, that type of thing. But two, it's so hectic and you're so worried about, I don't know. I'm in the same boat. That's why I don't drive, right? I don't, it is, so in the mornings and the evenings, it is about 3/4 of a mile to my daughter's school. We walk them there in the mornings. My smaller daughter, she scoots on one of those little scooter things,
I thought you were going to say you did.
Yeah, right. So we walk that in the morning. I got the puppy with me. That's her walk. We walk there, and then we walk straight from that school to my other daughter's school, which is, I don't know, another half mile. And then we come home, which is a half mile. So anyway, you get a couple mile walk in. The puppies walked. Everybody's dropped off and everything. So that's actually the highlight of my day. I love doing that. So yeah,
I'm definitely jealous.
You need that walking neighborhood, man, where you can just walk your kids to school. That's what it's all about.
Well, we got a really interesting topic today. I'm super intrigued about this one because I know I've said it, and I've said it both as a student and I've said it as a professor, but there's a very, very common saying in college, and that's just give it the old college try.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're going to talk about that this episode. What does it mean to give it the old college try? And what are, is it bad or is it good or is it those kind of things? So what does that sound like to you?
Perfect. Sounds really good. Before we do, everybody, you know what I say every time. You got to visit Reschool'd.com. That's our website, Reschool with a D, not an ED.com. That's where we have all our recent episodes. That's where we have stuff that we put up on the socials. That's where you can find us. We identify the different podcast platforms where you can get our show and stuff. So anyway, look us up there. And again, on your favorite podcasting platform, if that's where you're listening to us, make sure you're hitting that likes, subscribe, rate us with all the stars type button thing, because that's what helps us out. All right.
Absolutely. Well, quick question of the day, since we're talking about giving it the old college try, and we're going to try to do a little bit more than just a college try on this episode, but we'll see how that goes. How do you feel about the saying as a student and also as a teacher? Like, were you somebody that believed in it?
Well, I heard it a lot growing up. I never really thought about it in college because, me, I was a kind of a workaholic there in college.
Overachiever?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what I achieved, but I was definitely a workaholic, right? So that never really came into play till I was a little bit older and in graduate school. And then that's when I started giving a lot of things the old college try. The emphasis shifted and things like that. Now, as a professor, it's changed a little bit, right? Now I'm, that I was saying, when you got a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? Yep. We're trying to teach people something, and then you see them putting in the old college try, and you're like, well, that's not going to be good enough for me, right? Mm-hmm. So, I can. There's frustrations there, but I don't know. What's your opinion? What's your take on it?
I was a big believer of the college try when I was in college as a student. again, I've said this on many times on the episodes, on different various episodes. I was strategically lazy. I tried to figure out how to get as much as possible by doing as little as possible. Some people called it lazy. I called it efficient. And so part of that efficiency, part of that strategically lazy side of me was having to use the college try. And so absolutely, I used it. And I think as you get older, the saying transitions from giving it the old college try to when you're an adult, it's like, it's good enough for government work. And so, as a teacher, I may be a hypocrite, call it what you want now thinking about it, but this is putting pressure on me now that I'm thinking about this. But, I have told some students before, just give it the old college try for some classes, but not mine. Don't do it for mine. You got to be spot on for mine.
Well, I want to hear then. What is an example where you gave it the old college try, like most outstanding example, and give me just an anonymous example of something you've seen in the classroom?
Well, I mean, probably the biggest usage of the old college try is with homework assignments. Mm-hmm. Because homework assignments were, depending on what class they were, they could be very lengthy or they could be very short. And depending on what the class was, it was kind of my turning point of, should I just give it the old college try or should I actually try? And so a lot of times, if it was not a class that I felt like it was important, which an undergrad was pretty much all of them because I was immature, I would go through and just do enough to get by, just to say, hey, I've got it. Probably the most egregious example of me using, and I'm not proud of this, but they've already given me the grade, so I can't take it back. Egregious, I can't even say the word, egregious usage of the college try is, I've had a class where they checked homework for completion and not for correction, and I wrote down some numbers and said, here you go, and because I forgot to do it the day before. And I wouldn't even say that's the old college try. That was just trying to get the grade. But for the example of somebody doing it in my class, I don't honestly, I was joking around about this before, but I don't necessarily mind that you get certain things wrong. And a lot of this has to do, the reason I'm bringing this up is because the way I teach class, I teach it from a strategic standpoint because, again, I'm talking about accounting, which for my classes, most of the students are not going to be accounting majors. They're not accounting majors, so they're not going to be accountants. So there are certain things that they're just kind of going through the class because they have to. They didn't choose to be there. And so they don't necessarily need all of the information, but there are also things that I can show them that would make class easier. Mm-hmm. For the grade purpose. And so I'll talk to them about, okay, for the purpose of this class, when it says this term, it only includes these two subcategories. So if it says, fill this out, I would start with those two things. You don't have to memorize all the other stuff. It's just those two things. That's, to me, giving it the old college try because it's figuring out ways for me to get the correct answer or put something in place that's going to get me to that point easier than me actually having to learn it. Mm-hmm. And so that would be probably the best example for me using the college try for my students in my classes. I'm trying to help them say, hey, even if you don't know this in depth, here are some things that may help you just get by. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is the old college try.
Well, I'm just trying to think through examples. I had a student one time. I told them to turn in, they had a research assignment that they were supposed to turn in. And I was very adamant about plagiarism. I said, none of that. And then this student, he warned me ahead of time. He said, I've kind of forgot about the exercise. So I didn't do my best work. I just turned in something just to turn it in. And I said, well, I suppose that's better than nothing. But when I looked at it, it was nothing but about 3 lines of his opinion on something. Grammar was off. I don't think there was a period, type thing. Nothing was researched, and he didn't even know what the topic meant. And that was what he turned in.
Lord.
So I agreed with him that was not his best work.
No kidding.
And I informed him that, I actually want to take points off more than you just not even turning it in. Just because that was so bad, right? That is, just tell me you forgot to do it. That is reputation killing there, that you turn something in like that. So never do that, right? So anyway, that was probably my best example.
You bring up a really good point. That's a little bit off topic, but I have had this discussion with other people before, and I want to get your opinion. So you have a student that just submits just garbage. Like, it is, like, the grade of it is less than a 10. Do you feel like it's better for them to just have gotten a 0 or have gotten a 4?
0.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with that.
Because then they can come back later and say, I forgot this, but, I'm a responsible person, blah, blah, blah. Anybody who's going to turn in something like that and just, there it is, you're like, oh, well, man. Yeah, you didn't ask for an extension. You didn't apologize. You just turned in that big pile of nothing, and then just act like it was another day. Like, no, that looks terrible. So no, I'm all about getting that 0 in that scenario.
Amen. Well, let's get to the main topics, and let's just get into what we mean. So what does it mean when we say just give it the old college try? What does that mean to you?
In my mind, it just means half-assing it. Or,
there you go.
Or, a more corporate term, I guess, would be phoning it in, right? Yeah. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, and I would agree. So to me, if you're trying to put it on I don't even know if there's a technical definition for it. I doubt there is. But to me, it's just trying to get by with minimal effort for the purpose of some goal, which is typically your grades. And so what you're doing is you're just trying to get the grade without the putting in the effort of the learning aspect of it and polishing it up or whatever it is. You're just trying to get it done so you can get a grade. That's it. That's kind of how I look at the college try.
Yeah. And I don't have any knowledge about the history or etymology of that phrase, right? I don't even know if you could use etymology to go with a phrase.
I don't even know what etymology is, but we'll go with it.
Word history.
Okay.
But I see it so often now. I'm like, that makes sense. But I would have to think that it has something to do with that not doing the assignment in college really doesn't have much repercussions, or there are so many assignments in college that some of them you are going to have to sift through and not put the full effort in, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think is the history behind it?
I'm actually looking it up right now. And if this is what if what it's saying is true, I'm actually absolutely shocked.
Oh, really?
Supposedly, the phrase, and this is actually quoting from some website, I don't know what I'm on, but supposedly the phrase referenced the enthusiasm of an amateur athlete playing for his college team. So it's more from a sports thing.
Really?
The term give it the old college try was quoted in Babe Ruth's book in 1920 or 1920s.
What?
I am flabbergasted on that one.
That is not how it is used in common parlance. So,
no.
Yeah, somebody says give it the old college try. That means you are not, putting your full weight behind it. So
that's interesting that it came from sports and then kind of transitioned over into academia.
Mm-hmm. And that Babe Ruth used it, right?
Yeah, no kidding. I mean,
back in that day, teens or whatever, nobody even went to college. It's like there was such a small percentage of college graduates. It was crazy.
Yeah, that is absolutely nuts to see that. I'm glad I looked that up. All right, so the next question, and probably the most important question after defining or talking about what the old college try is it always necessarily bad? Is it a bad thing?
So in my mind, well, it depends on the extent of it, right? If the college try is like I gave you an example of a few minutes ago, it is just utter garbage, right? I mean, then in that case, it's a bad thing. In other situations, you just don't have the time to do your best work. there are so many assignments. You got a lot coming down a chute, whether it was your own fault or, you overloaded your wagon, or whether it was just, you didn't have anything else you could do, right? That a lot was required, and that's just bad luck.
Yeah.
In that scenario, not doing your best work and turning it in, okay, fine, right? You threw what you could behind it. This is the amount of time I had. I did that. I moved on. Boom. That's going to be a necessary skill in life in my mind. But yeah, you just throw in a nothingness for no reason, no explanation, no context for it, no anything. And here's one thing that can make bad good in that scenario is to let the professor know. Like, I know this isn't my best work, and here's why. Just a heads up. This is what I'm going through. This is why it all came down. Part of it's my fault. Part of it's other things. But just so you know, right? There you go.
I wonder, and I want to pose this question to you because it really plays off of what you just said. I'm really interested to hear your opinion on this. You said just let the professor know, hey, here ahead of time, this is not my best work. To me, from a strategy perspective, I wouldn't do that up front. I would wait until I get my grade afterwards, because to me, going into it, if I were to tell the professor, hey, this is not my best work, I'm already putting it down, and they're more likely, in my head, they're more likely to grade it harder because they're already looking at it like I've already done something wrong.
Oh, no. See, for me, I'm all about, I know, so I don't look at anybody's name or anything like that while I'm grading. Sure. And almost everything is typed, so there's very little way to discern who it is. There's actually a feature in there where you can hide the name as you're grading and stuff. And I always use that because I don't want any outside influence. Now, some students they can't help it. They put things in there that you know exactly who they are, type scenario. But I do everything I can not to be biased towards or against any students, because, you tend to be biased towards students who show up to class and participate, and biased against ones who are either don't show up to class or are disruptive, right? Type scenario. But I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that mindset that I'm going to grade them harder or less or anything like that. So that being said, when I'm going through it, if somebody has told me ahead of time, right, that they didn't put in their best work or whatever type scenario, once I've graded everything, all the grades are down, and I go back and look at it, I might take a second look at that one just to make certain I haven't been more biased, because it does. You're reading something and it's obvious the person hasn't studied or hasn't done any research on a topic or something like that. It puts you in okay, well, you didn't do that. Well, obviously you didn't know this either. I think it causes the grade to be worse, right? But type scenario, if they've told me something about it and it puts it in context, it'll cause me to go back and look. Now, after I've already rendered the grade, I don't, and giving it out to the class, and that's the class average and stuff like that. Somebody tells me afterwards. In that case, I'm like, okay, I understand, but it's not going to affect your grade, right? I'm not going to go back and look at it at that point. What's done is done type scenario. So if nothing else, it'll cause me to at least look at your work in that context to make certain I'm fully taking into consideration what you've put down on paper, and hadn't gotten into, well, this is garbage, so this is garbage, so this is garbage type scenario.
Yeah, I guess because I don't have experience I don't do papers in my class. So that kind of subjective grading, all of my stuff is just right or wrong, and there's really not much in between. So
yeah, there's no way to really alter A, B, C, or D, right?
Exactly.
It is
or the numbers side of it, but it has to be this number. So like, again, in accounting, journal entries have to look a specific way, and if they don't look that way, they're wrong. Mm-hmm. And so there's no kind of that gray area in there. So that's probably a little bit different for me, but I agree with you. I do have a title page that's separate, that their name is on, but it's separate from their paper. So I do grade it without knowing who the student is. Mm-hmm. I do believe in that. So to my answer of, is it necessarily bad, and kind of to piggyback on yours, we threw out some examples of what college try is. To me, there is a difference between what you were saying, where the kid just threw the paper out there and got a 4, versus what kind of I saw myself as a college try, because a college try, one, is not cheating. We're not talking about cheating, so like plagiarizing or anything like that. That's not the college try. That's deception. Mm-hmm. The college try is you're trying to get, at least in my opinion, the way it was for me, you're trying to at least get a passing grade. Mm-hmm. You're putting enough effort in there to just get the passing grade, but not spending too much time on it to get maybe the 100 or whatever you're looking for. That to me is a description of a college try. So using that definition or using that parameter of what college tries are, I don't think it's necessarily bad, because you are taking into consideration that opportunity cost. So if I'm going to have to spend that much time on this project over here or this assignment over here, obviously I'm not going to have that time somewhere else. I can't work on two things at the same time. So you really have to go in and figure out, is it necessary for me to put my full attention to this assignment for one reason or another, or can I lay off of a little bit so I can put that time somewhere else? That is, to me, what the college try is, and that's why I say it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just understanding when to use it and when not to use it. Mm-hmm. To me, and this is, we can go in this as the next question. To me, the time when to use it and when not to use it is dependent on what you're trying to get out of the class. And specifically, and I guess you would say the fulcrum of that decision is your major. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm probably not going to, when I was in master's program, I was not somebody who was going to give the college try in an accounting class, because my major is accounting. I need to know accounting, and therefore I need to actually learn the stuff, not for the purpose of the grade, but actually truly learn it because I'm going to need that to move forward. Mm-hmm. Versus if I was going to take like a psychology class. Psychology classes would have been, I mean, they're fun classes. I remember my undergrad psychology class, but it was not part of my major. So I felt like I can slack off just a little bit more on that one and put that time I needed to truly understanding the concepts and a deeper meaning for the accounting classes. That's when I would say the college try is probably an option. I'm not going to say it's good or bad, mm-hmm. but it's just an option for students to have so they can kind of have that time management. But you definitely want to make sure you're learning on the classes that you need to be learning.
So I agree with that one 100%. You know, I'm not a big proponent of focusing on grades as much as learning. But there is one resounding place where grades is going to come up again, and that's going to graduate school. If you know that's in your future, you got to plan on that. But in terms of getting a job, in terms of assessing whether you truly have a working knowledge, we know that grades don't do as good a job as they should of that. Okay, you can have a good, solid understanding and not get the best grades, and you can get great grades based upon your study techniques and your test-taking techniques, and you don't know the stuff as well, right? Because you haven't applied it in a given context and things like that. So our ability to grade is, deficient in a way. So particularly in your major courses, I think you should focus on you knowing the material, right? Having a working understanding and knowledge of it. If you know you're going to graduate school, you got to make good grades in everything, right? Because it all averages out. So it comes down to that. But if there is a time to just phone it in, it is, whatever courses you've prioritized is more important. Likely the ones that are part of your major, right? Likely the ones that are relevant to whatever you want to learn or do in your life. And I say that sometimes people want to learn and do things, but they also want to start a business in that field. Well, that could make that entrepreneurship course the most important one you take, right? Or it could make that psychology course, because it helps you understand yourself or others better, the most important course. So anyway, that being said, you got to be strategic again. You've got to prioritize what matters most, and you focus on the things that matter most, that have the most impact towards your future, whatever that future may be. The things that have the least impact, that is where you're going to use the old college try, if there's a place for it at all.
Yeah, and that's the whole purpose of us bringing this episode to the podcast, is because this is an option for strategy, and strategy is such an important piece to all of your learning time periods, whether it be high school, college, or grad. And then going into your career, there's still strategy that you're going through. I mean, when you get into your career, there's going to be things that you're going to fall in. And then there'll be times where you're actually going to have to sit down, put the effort into it, and really work on whatever the results are what you're trying to become or what you're trying to do, what the outcome is going to be. So this is something that transitions from all parts of your life, whether it be academic or professional. And so that's why we wanted to bring this one up. I do think it's important to know how to use it and when to use it. But it's not necessarily something you always want to use for obvious reasons.
Yeah. One of those good finite topics, something to think about. But, like I say, just like before, dips into strategy. Yep.
Well, this has been a fun episode. I've been looking forward to having one of those ones that we were going to just cut up and have fun. And I feel like this is one of those ones that allowed us to do that. So it wasn't too serious.
Yeah, these are the best.
It lets us talk about being a slacker, which is not something that we normally do. But you got any parting words before you head out?
Just remind everybody, we want to hear from you guys. Tell us what you want us to talk about on the show. Look us up on the website. Hit us up on the social media handles. Like I say, we'll respond to you. That's what we do. And hopefully, you'll give us some ideas of things to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you enjoyed the show. I hope to see you next time. Until then, goodbye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Reschool'd podcast. Be sure to head over to Reschool'd.com for news and other information on things we're getting into.